Hello, my friends. Time for Thought Shifting Thursdays. Good to be back with you. So, I've been teaching this book for the last couple weeks. My last two videos have been about this book, Busting Loose from the Money Game, the most powerful teaching that I've ever experienced, and I've experienced many, many, many different teachings and practices and systems, which I'm going to talk more about some of the history of things from way back when that I learned in a couple weeks from now. But I always, when I get ready to do these videos, I didn't know until 10 minutes ago what I was going to talk about today. I always just ask, what am I most excited about? And it's definitely this teaching, especially since we're going into our third week now of teaching the class based on this book. Hi, Naomi. Naomi's in the class, and so is Karina. And so I really want to talk about the ultimate non-attachment today, which is no longer being in physical form. In our society, we don't like to talk about death very much, right? And of course, it is an important part of life. Death and taxes, right? Inevitable. So I was talking with a client today, and last week I shared in the video about I gave you a story about how I shifted from the relativist point of view in terms of law of attraction to the absolutist point of view. So go back and watch that video. Highly recommend it. I'll give you the punchline, or the cut to the chase on it, and it's this: that let me define those two terms. So the relativist point of view in terms of the law of attraction is this: my consciousness profoundly affects what I experience in life, my reality. The absolutist point of view is this: that everything that I experience, everything that happens everywhere, is a result of my consciousness. And so I converted from the relativist point of view to the absolutist point of view. Now, as I said in the video last week, I don't even know if it's true for sure, but as a result of the story that I shared last week, I came to the understanding that, reality is what we choose it to be. It's not something that's fixed anyway. So there isn't any right or wrong on this side, but on either side of this discussion or debate, or whatever you want to talk about. In the story, it was a debate. But what the conclusion I came to, because once I started living from the understanding, the principle that I'm creating everything that I experience, then life got exponentially better and continues. So, what it says in the book is to bust loose from the money game, or to put that in a simple way, from any limitations in life, financial or otherwise, health, relationship, whatever it is you want to create, whatever limitation you're coming up against, to bust loose from all of those, what is required is to believe, or at least play with, because you don't have to believe it, I've found, but you have to play with and live from this understanding that I'm creating everything that occurs for me. And I'll say more about that in a moment. So shifting from the relativist point. So again, it's simply what I came to is that there's no right and wrong about it. It's just living from it. That's what matters, right? Because I don't even know if I believe at this point that my consciousness is creating everything, but I know when I live from that place, from that understanding, that feeling, especially the feeling tone of that, I'm more powerful. So again, go back and watch that video. It's probably the most important one that I've done yet. Somebody, she'll probably be watching this later, saw the video and said, "Oh my God, I read this book a long time ago, and I was just searching for some kind of group that is, talking about this, where we can share ideas about it, because I have no one to talk to about it." And so I forget her name, but hopefully you'll see this and we'll connect. In fact, I'll put this out to you. Whoever that was, can't remember your name. Let's do a complimentary coaching session. And that's what I do in most of my coaching. Is every one of my clients, I recommend to read this book, and those that read it, they get the fastest results in their coaching experience. Um, and again, just to give you a flavor of the book, it's not about getting more money. It's about busting loose from limitations around money. Um, so I want to share some nuances about that creating a own reality. What Robert Scheinfeld says in the book, which is a wonderful um, connector for the disconnect we have in new thought and self-help, which, we know that everybody that's watching this video knows that we create our reality in some form or another, right? But how does that jibe then with when something bad happens? I contract an illness, my cryptocurrency goes down to half of what it was, less than half of what it was a few months ago. Those are things that I might judge as bad, but I know from my practice that they're not bad. They're for me. Everything is for me. So if everything's for me, why would I be attracting these different situations? Well, here's the thing that Scheinfeld says, is that we're creating our reality not from the presence of our personal self. We're creating, and this is important, prelude to getting to talking about non-attachment to death, finding the joy in death for myself and others. That's where we're going here. But we're creating our reality not from our personal self, but from the presence and the intentionality of my expanded self, my soul self. And so, what that's, hello, C. Bariomira. So glad you joined us. I'm sure I didn't say that right. So, we're creating our reality from the presence of our soul. So what that means is that from the perspective of our soul, everything that's happening is happening for us. Nothing is happening to us, it's all happening for us. My client today that I was talking to, she has, osteoporosis and and bone loss, and at least 2 times in the last couple months, her physical therapy has been slightly more aggressive than it needed to be, or than what was appropriate, and it caused fractures in her vertebrae. So she's got 4 fractures now, and each time she's recovering from that. And the really amazing thing that after three months of coaching and raising her consciousness, where she was depressed as a result of her physical condition, now she's actually in a positive place about it. And the thing that she sees so clearly, that is what I like to emphasize in my coaching, is that her consciousness has risen, not in spite of these physical challenges, but because of them. Because it's the pain that she's been experiencing, intense pain she's experienced, has caused her to, she could have gone the other way and just become more and more depressed, but as a result of the encouragement I've given her and her own practice, and putting into practice these principles, is she has raised her consciousness. So even though the pain was worse in the last week, her consciousness and her positivity was at a higher level than it was when the pain wasn't as bad. And so what she's realizing is that it's all for her. We can all look back at the most challenging points in her life and say, oh, now I see why that happened. That's when I grew in consciousness and feeling and, whatever it might be. We don't usually see that in the moment, right? We usually resist things. So my, constant reminder, my book, The Magic of the Soul, is all about looking for the magic in every situation, finding the greater freedom, joy, love that wants to emerge from every challenge. And when we do that, we move into alignment with our soul consciousness. If we're saying, I don't like this and I want it to go away, we're actually fighting against our soul intention. The more we simply surrender, and even if I can't find what the greater freedom, joy is, but asking that question is the important thing, because when I ask that question, I'm no longer a victim of circumstance. Now I'm using the circumstance to empower myself, right? And if I can't find, but by asking the question, even if I don't find the greater freedom, joy, or love, or magic that wants to emerge from this session, hi JB, thanks for joining us. I can at least intuit that there is some greater freedom, joy to be harvested from this experience. I can simply surrender into it and trust. Now I am in alignment with my soul power. Now I have my soul powers available to actually help me to heal from the situation, to come to resolution. Whereas if I'm resisting, guess what? All of my powers going into that resistance, I'm burning up my personal and spiritual power when I'm resisting any situation. It's an interesting, I've never said it in that way before. I'm actually diffusing my power. But when I am in trust, when I'm in surrender, when I'm embracing whatever is, when I'm non-attached to results, then I have full power to change the situation. Isn't that a fascinating dichotomy? Is that the less I'm concerned or trying to change things, the more power I have for things to change easily and effortlessly. I know that you're getting that, right? So take a deep breath into just feeling the power in that. And maybe even in this moment, take a moment to breathe into whatever the biggest challenge you have in your life is right now. And just ask this question: what will it be like when I give up resistance to it? Doesn't mean I don't still want to change the situation, but I'm no longer fighting against it. What solutions might come into play? I'll share more about my client. The amazing thing is she just found a protocol to, and she has very limited funds right now. She hasn't been able to work because of her condition. And so she found, her doctor suggested this protocol where you inject a medication that it costs something like, I think she said $2,000 a day, right, for this medication that actually repairs and increases your bone, what's the word, bone strength, right? Bone mass actually increases it. And she found which was funny because I was going to suggest to her, because I know that there are these foundations that will support people in paying for like rare diseases and expensive protocols or medications. And so she found one, and they're paying for all of it for the year. And she'll be on this for the next couple of years, or a year and a half at least. So the interesting thing was she was not aware of this protocol or the ability to have it paid for 100% until she got her positivity up and also was embracing rather than resisting the situation. So that's the power. That's the power of our consciousness. So now, relating all of this, I used to be a relativist, and so when I was a relativist and thinking about the law of attraction, this was like the conundrum that I had, is if our consciousness is creating our reality, then wouldn't it make sense that the older I get and wiser I am and higher my consciousness is, then the stronger and healthier my physical body would be? And yet I'm 65 years old, and I'm finding that, my shoulder pain, joint pain, my energy's great, I gotta say that. But, there's various things that are, I can't run as fast now as I could when I was in my 20s. I do get drop shots when I'm playing tennis that people are amazed that I can get at 65 years old. And I'm, playing basketball and tennis with 20-year-olds sometimes, and giving them a run for their money, if not winning those matches. But so and even the masters of this teaching, tend to end up having a similar life cycle as everyone else, like Ernest Holmes, anyone you want to name, Deepak Chopra, they're not living until they're like 500. Our gardeners are here earlier today. I think they have to go inside probably for the noise. They're not living till 500 or 1,000 years old. Their bodies tend to do the same that everyone else does, right? And so it's starting to get loud already. So we're going to move inside. Watch how this works for a live video. On the way, I'm going to show you our property here, in case you haven't seen it before. This is our labyrinth, right behind me over there. You'll see our sweat lodge through the archway there. This is our view from our property of the mountains. Someone told me there's snow on the mountains. I guess that's in the valley, though. So anyway, you get to see that today. And now the dog's going to be barking, too. I'm going to sit right over here. What do you think about that? All right, so what occurred to me, though, is it's a nice place to sit. So what occurred to me, though, is if we're creating, so, how could that be? There must be something wrong with this law of attraction stuff. If the older we get, we don't actually get healthier. But what occurred to me is if we're creating our reality from the presence of our expanded self, then we're creating our expanded self, our collective soul knows that this, I know, thank you, okay, the gardeners are going away. My beloved just helped me out there. You know what? I think my battery's dying now too. Look at all these challenges. Non-attachment, that's what we get to practice today. Let me go inside anyway then. Plug in. Hey babe, could you please get your power cord for me? All right, sorry about all these interruptions, everyone, but we're going to keep on keeping on. Excuse me, I just need to get my chair here. All right, hopefully that power cord's going to get here really soon. All right, I am not going to quit. All right, my beloved is plugging it in for me. There's one, you could plug in over here. All right. Thank you, my love. All righty, here we are. So if we're creating from our expanded self, it's amazing that I'm able to keep my focus here with all of this. But if we're creating our reality from our expanded self, our collective soul has decided that this life cycle is the perfect thing for us. I've said this before in these videos, that one way of looking at our evolution as human beings is an evolution of, or an increasing of, Rosario, could you go and come back, finish in a little bit? That part of our evolution, a big part of our evolution, is the evolution of non-attachment. Every time I get an injury, or every time I notice that I've got an illness, or anything that is, the breaking down of my body, if I practice non-attachment, and I recognize this is perfect. There's beauty in everything. There's beauty in my body breaking down and leading toward its ultimate demise, because that's the perfect cycle of life that we have all agreed to, right? The most challenging thing in life as a human being is losing the presence of someone we love. But the more that we practice non-attachment, I'm not going to get to the place where if my wife were to pass away before me, that I'm going to be happy the next day, right? But my practice will be to see the beauty in that, to focus on the times that we've had together, right? I might even read something from my memorial service. I think I will do that before we're done here. That kind of speaks to this. So really, it's just about, I was talking with my client today, it's really about just shifting from having what determines our inner experience, our joy, our freedom, our abundance, shifting from what's happening in the world of form to recognizing that the only thing that matters is how I feel inside. And that's the one thing I have control of. And the more I practice non-attachment, the more I practice simply living from a consistent experience of freedom and joy and love, the more everything in life just gets better and better and easier without even having to try. So coming back to the death of our physical bodies then, it's just really, it's seeing the beauty in everything. It's the beauty in this inner experience that I'm having right now, speaking to you. When I think about my demise, it inspires me to just want to live fully right here and right now. This is the only moment that we really have. So I'm going to get my memorial service that I do every now and then when friends or family ask me to do this for loved ones. So I'm just going to read a little bit. I read this to someone recently who had just lost a loved one, and she found it, and I sent her a copy of it too, and she found it very, very helpful. So, first off, I'm going to read this poem by Mary Elizabeth Fried. You might have heard it, called "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep." Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not here, I am not there, I do not sleep. I'm 1,000 winds that blow. I'm the diamond glints on snow. I'm the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there, I did not die. And then I mention I love the message of this poem and reiterate that it's also important to cry and express our emotions of sadness or loss whenever they're present. And there's a beauty in our human experience, our human feelings. There's a beauty in the sadness. At the heart of our sadness is our greatest love. There wouldn't be sadness if we didn't have love, right? At the heart of my deepest pain is also my deepest love. At the heart of my greatest anger is something that I really believe in, something that's dear to me that may not be being honored in this moment, right? And so when I focus on what's at the heart, the magic in my human emotion, then, it's not about taking away that emotion or getting rid of it. It's about bringing together the love and the pain, the love and the fear, the what's important to me and the anger. And then when they fuse together, then again, that alignment between personality and soul come together. So let me continue reading. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. You would know the secret of death, but how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? The owl whose night-bound eyes are blind unto the day cannot unveil the mystery of light. If you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide unto the body of life. For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. In the depth of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. And like the seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. Your fear of death is but the trembling of the shepherd when he stands before the king whose hand is to be laid upon him in honor. Is the shepherd not joyful beneath his trembling that he shall wear the mark of the king? Yet is he not more mindful of his trembling? Is she, I want to use generic or gender neutral here as well. Yet is she not more mindful of her trembling? For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountaintop, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. If the passing of a loved one is the most difficult to bear, it also can be the reminder and inspiration to live our lives to the fullest, to right our wrongs, to forgive, to live in joy, to love unconditionally, and to be grateful for the brief time that we have together in this precious life. The author Ram Dass said, in the end, we're all just walking each other home. Isn't that true? That every death, every thought of death can be the inspiration to live more fully in this very moment. Life and death are one. It's all part of this perfectly designed system. The only way I've found to ultimate peace is to practice. It's not about getting to 100% non-attachment, because that's an ideal. But the closer we get to non-attachment, the higher the level of non-attachment that we have, which is the basis of this book, Busting Loose from the Money Game. It's not a new idea. This guy named Siddhartha Gautama, said something about non-attachment a few years back, a few centuries back, right? But it's the only way to ultimate peace. So my encouragement, my invitation to all of my friends in social media is to practice non-attachment. What that means is, as we did in that very short meditation earlier, is just give up attachment, give up resistance. I'm going to say my favorite phrase, that I say at least 20 times a week, is everything that we resist not only persists, but magnifies. When I do our sweat lodges, if you resist the heat, it gets hotter. If you resist your physical pain, it becomes greater. If you resist financial hardship, it gets worse. Everything that we embrace becomes our ally, our teacher, and our healer. As soon as we embrace, solution comes into play. Simple as that, my friends. Practice non-attachment. All right. Wish I could invite you to join the class, but we're into our third week, so we can't do that. I'll be doing it again sometime. Get the book and read it if you haven't. Share this with your friends. Give us a like. Give us a comment. And be at peace, my friends. We'll talk to you next week. And have a great one. In this context, what have a great one means is just be in joy right now. Let's close with this meditation. Take a deep breath. Can you feel joy right now? Can you feel abundance right now, regardless of your financial situation? Can you feel pure love right now, regardless of challenges in relationship? If you can feel them right now, then guess what? You are love. You are abundance. You are enlightened. You are perfect health. Physical world means nothing. It's all an inside-out game. It's all an inner experience. All right, be enjoying, my friends, and we'll talk to you next week.